everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Reinventing Finance, as usual, with my lovely co-host, Tom. Tom, how are you today?
Thank you, Nick. Looking forward to our talk.
Likewise. And as usual, we are not all by ourselves. We managed to coax Ali Hasan into our humble virtual abode. Ali, welcome. How are you this fine morning?
I'm well. Thanks very much for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for taking the time. Maybe for the few of our listeners who your very iconic company that you work for, but also yourself might not immediately ring a bell, why don't you humor us and just briefly introduce yourself, or, as I like to say, who are you and what the hell are you doing?
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm Chief Medical and Healthcare Officer at Vitality in the UK. Vitality in the UK is the fully owned subsidiary of Discovery based in South Africa. We offer health insurance and life insurance, as well as car insurance. We have approximately just over 1.5 million lives on our books in the UK. Our group is present in over 40 countries, and I think the number is close to 45, if not more now. We deliver something called shared value insurance and shared value financial services products. So the idea is, it's not just people who have something unpleasant or catastrophic or using the basic services of a financial service product who benefit from it. Everyone benefits from it. And a large critical part of success has been our Vitality program. Embedded in every product we sell is the largest global wellness program of its kind, which is predicated on three things: helping people understand how healthy they are, helping them remove barriers to getting healthy, and then helping them continue to incentivize being in good health.
Thank you very much. Now, I think everyone, that's why I meant iconic. It's always nice to work with or to have the pleasure of talking to someone who's probably also mentioned in numerous case studies, I would imagine. So that's always something that, and I can tell my mom about. So, she'll be so proud. So I think, thank you. So from my point of view, if I paraphrase, you're trying to attract not just, you're obviously trying to attract healthy customers, as any health or life insurer. That's the business of them, right? To kind of blend these things, but equally you're trying to educate them and help everyone to become healthier, so that even if and that is beneficial for you. It lowers your expenses, which again lowers the premiums for your customers. But I think, and it would be interesting to just understand your view, and maybe also what works and what maybe could still be improved, that you manage to create a continuous positive touch point with your customers, which, let's face it, most insurers, and rightfully so, struggle with. Because it's not, it's not the product. We're not selling candy. You might probably don't like people who sell candy, but that's
No, I do.
That's a different story. So could you outline a little bit on what makes that engagement work? Maybe some counterintuitive lessons from that, and just some specific examples, because it does make a lot of sense from a kind of strategic high level. And, your strategy consultants slides outline that really well. It's always, vitality, connected health, build an ecosystem, become big, that would be very interesting, I find.
Sure. So maybe if I've understood your question correctly, a few things that have been critical to our success, and a couple of things where we, like other insurers, are continuing to look towards the future that might be helpful. Yeah. I think firstly, the differentiator, the concept of shared value insurance, is something that everyone in the group is extremely proud of. The idea that we can do more for more people, the fundamental basis of being able to impact people and offer something different, has been core to what we do. That's manifested in a few different ways. Firstly, in thinking about the wellness program, we're continually reinventing it to bring in more partners, more solutions, and more things that are relevant for a wide range of people using the service. So For example, people can have simple health checks. They can have more exhaustive ones delivered through some of our partners that will have more extensive testing. They can have discounts on the gyms, discounts on running shoes, or all of the above, or other offers to help stay being healthy. And we have a range of rewards for people to stay healthier, which, as you said, extend everything from the change in premium that they have, all the way to rewards for savers, such as cashback, to rewards for spenders, such as discounts. However, I don't want people to think that we just focus on that side of things, because ultimately running excellence in the core product of what we sell, the financial services products, is absolutely critical to our success too. So from our perspective, we've worked really, really hard, for example, in the health insurance we offer in the UK to offer something differentiated. If I just give you a few examples, we are the first insurer in the United Kingdom of any scale that allows end-to-end straight-through authorization of digital health claims. And furthermore, we're plugged into, I think, something like 30,000 slots available with specialists for people to book their care. So people can actually complete that pre-authorization and booking step seamlessly in one go. We were the first insurer to offer mental health therapy included in all our health insurance policies. And we've been the first insurer to remove underwriting and now only have a waiting period for mental health therapy. And also, we have dramatically changed how we deliver our proposition to people through digital health. We were the first to offer a fully inclusive telemedicine platform for GPs, and that's continued to grow year on year. I think in terms of challenges that we face, like all other insurers, we recognize that the industry isn't necessarily at the forefront of technological experience compared to tech companies and compared to retail. And for us, continuing to close that gap and hopefully one day exceed what's being offered is critical, because the expectations of customers are getting higher and higher. Secondly, I think if we're looking really further towards the future, the two things that stick in mind are the increasing cost, I think, of healthcare, changing demographics, changing expectations around how the economy is going to go. Those are things that we all face as challenges and have to be forward-thinking in how we address them. And secondly, this is probably of interest to all financial services companies, the really interesting, rapid and visible shift into what AI can do and what that means in terms of it changes how we work, what customers expect.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense, and thanks for kind of breaking that down so clearly. So it makes it really easy to follow. Thank you for that, Ali. One point about, if I could kind of step back on the reward program, nudging, incentivizing customers. From your point of view, what works better than others, right? Is it, or, is it financial, and is that even, is it financial incentive? Does it depend on the customer? Is it, offer? Is it, what works from your point of view, and potentially also some counterintuitive things where you said, listen, I thought, we'll nudge them financially, but really what matters was getting, I don't know, the right brand of something. I don't know, any kind of ideas, because I think there's a lot of learning in how to structure your rewards, your incentivization, and any kind of things you can share without sharing too much would be highly appreciated.
I think the main overarching piece of advice and commentary I provide on this is the need to recognize not just customer focus, which I think is an embedded component of the way all organizations of any scale are thinking about how they achieve success, but actually realizing the importance of personalization, and then thinking about how to bridge towards personalization in terms of everything from the products and services you offer to the way that you speak to customers when things go wrong. From our perspective, we have over 900,000 customers in our health book, but every one of those is a unique individual. Every one of them will have specific needs. So for us, the opportunity is really to use all of the information we have about them in a way that they'd be comfortable with, to be able to help them as much as possible, to understand what the next best action or support we might be able to provide them is. So to give you an example, as an insurer, you think about the concept of policy and administration changes. We know when someone changes their bill of address, We know when someone has a child and they add them to their policy. These are just two examples of several life events that we as insurers are privileged to know about. And actually, those are also really important trigger moments where people might be thinking about how they want to reevaluate their relationship with their health, for example. So actually thinking about things from a customer lifecycle perspective and thinking about that blend between personalizing it to individual and thinking about common experiences that humans go through is really important to think about how you can support people into, forgive the corny phrase, but live their best life.
But what I would like to, let's say, to add as a question is that, let's say, the difficult thing about health insurance is that it's not as scalable as, like, I just read an article about Apple Pay this morning as an example. And then on the one hand, you have all those incumbents in all those countries, and they at least try to do the same, what you're also telling. And on the other hand, you have the small, let's say, fintech or health insurtech companies like Oscar or Autonova in Germany, etc. But they never were able to really scale in those huge amounts and in an international scale like you did. So what's the secret sauce about this? Because is it the fact that you are a combination of an incumbent and the power and, let's say, this very modern insurtech way of approaching platform economy for the health services? Or because, I mean, it must be incredibly complicated because every country is, let's say, so special and so different from another one because those systems are totally different from each other.
I think you're absolutely correct. And I think what's interesting for any organization trying to take a clear strategy into different countries is recognizing that regulations, culture, systems might be different. And these are tricky barriers to overcome that need time, focus, and attention. I haven't been here for the whole journey of decades. I've been here for just over 8 years. But for me, the things that really resonate and the things that are clear are the, I think, importance of vision and clarity. So the underlying thesis that empowers how we want to do good for customers hasn't changed substantially in that time. There's been, increasing levels of sophistication on the how, but the why and the what stays consistent and firm. The second thing, and I mean, this is something I think everyone knows, but in the midst of challenging times can sometimes be deprioritized or forgotten. Focusing on working with, bringing in, and retaining great people is absolutely critical. This is an organization of people committed to delivering value, committing to pushing the boundaries forward. And the organization globally, from what I've seen, is very focused on making sure that they bring people in where there is a cultural alignment. The third thing is, I think, looking for good relationships and partnerships too. We, as an organization, in many of the verticals we have, recognize we're part of an ecosystem too. So as a health insurer, we're not just dealing with customers, financial organizations. We're dealing with primary care providers. We're dealing with a small clinic in a rural area. We're dealing with large hospital chains. We're dealing with pharmaceutical companies sometimes. So bringing in all of those information and thinking about how that ecosystem works, having a really clear idea about what your component is in that value chain, how to work with the rest of the ecosystem to optimize it for everyone is really important.
But what are your, let's say, lessons for, let's say, all those other players who tried to do at least the same? Because let's say, I mean, if you say, okay, we treat everybody well and we treat the patients well and we treat our own people well and etc. But this is it because there is so much financial power or long-term perspective? Because I mean, it takes an enormous amount of time before health insurance is profitable.
I think the long-term perspective has been entirely critical to what we do. But I think the question you're raising, if I understand correctly, is about the challenge for new incumbents to scale and for current players to, I think, pivot.
Yeah, let's say if you discuss the topic with the incumbent, often the conclusion is there's just too much legacy, and it's very difficult to start something new. Let's say with a lot of modern technology, etc. So the typical classical incumbent problem. So then you would say, okay, just fund one of those start or scale ups. Take Otto Nova in Germany or Oscar Health or Lemonade, etc. Depending a little bit on what field they are specialized on. But then you also see that it is enormously difficult or totally difficult to scale this up.
Absolutely.
So is there is it a question of a huge financial power? And you also can't say you have done this in one country and then you can just put your platform to another country. So how or do you have a specific strategy for those layers that you say, okay, you have a kind of basic layer which you can use again and again, and you have a kind of modular principle which you adapt to every country? Because I just thought, okay, if I really would have to invest some more the money in the different fields of an insurtech, probably health would be the last part because it's just too complicated.
So, I mean, a few things to reflect on based on your observations. I think you raise a really real point in that for the incumbents, the capitalization is challenging, not just from the funding of insurance contracts, but recognizing the intrinsic complexity in going into financial services with everything from regulation to challenge marketing to the fact that actually building trust is a long activity that takes time. I think for the larger organizations, I can't speak to all of them for what's happening too, but it's a well-established phenomenon that change is hard and takes years and requires attention to culture, not just changing a system or changing a process and doing that rinse and repeat. I think more certainly can be done in terms of partnerships between incumbents and new entrants to, I suppose, bridge that and get the best of both worlds. And based on my experience, I'm seeing more and more of that, which is positive. And again, to my previous point, is those partnerships, I think they're crucial for growth. And I personally am always heartened when I see interesting companies doing new and exciting things that challenge us, because that's what keeps us on our toes and keeps us fresh and keeps us innovating. To your point about, I suppose, the portability and the ability to replicate success in different geographies, we as an organization have taken very considered approaches to how we enter different geographies too. So, for example, in the United Kingdom and South Africa, the businesses are fully equity owned. We have joint ventures in a number of different areas, such as our joint venture with Ping An in China. We also have businesses in adjacent areas, such as Amplify Health, based in Asia Pacific, which is focusing on technology, and Quantium, which is focused on analytics. So we have looked at a wide range of areas, and we do give lots of consideration strategically to what's important, as well as the points I raised earlier on people and execution and mission.
Understood. Would you, and then like to pick up on the car insurance thing if you've kind of introduced earlier, because I'm interested about that. But just one final thing, can you give an example of where, you know, your long-term vision has been tested in terms of a trade-off? Because and what I mean by that is I feel that many healthcare providers would have something similar, you know, on their mission statement, vision. We want to help all of our customers live a healthier, better life. And I'm not being even cynical about it. But what does that mean? For example, from experience, does that mean that you know, when you Discovery was before it turned profitable, they were willing to invest hundreds of millions over an extended period of time? Does this mean that you might be structured as a mutual, not a share structure, that you you know, that you don't pay dividends? I mean, there's certain things, or you have there's some form of representation. I don't know, you know, there's that you can pinpoint some artifacts maybe that are harder to replicate to kind of show that you're walking the talk.
So I think you raise a really, really good point, I think, about the challenges between thinking about how you deliver on the mission and the need to stay sustainable as an organization too. I think an increasingly faster moving world where there is shorter and shorter term pressures and reducing time horizons, it does become increasingly challenging. I think a good example of that, I suppose, is the focus on the Vitality program. if you think about it, lots of changes that people make in their health and well-being do make immediate benefits, but also the benefits that people accumulate from living healthier, they multiply with multiple different actions. They multiply over years too. From our perspective, what we always have to give strong consideration to is that relationship between what level of funding we give for the health improvement program, which is absolutely critical, but also make sure that we do it in a way that's virtuous towards the remainder of our business too, where the majority of people can benefit. That applies to every insurer in terms of how they deliver benefits, because there's a question saying, well, there's a trade-off in some areas sometimes between how many people will benefit from a specific policy term and what the individual cost will be to people who aren't ever going to use that policy term. So those challenges are not new to insurance or financial services.
Okay.
I think for an example of how we've been walking the walk and when we think about it in the UK health business is, again, just thinking about how we can offer benefits that keep us ahead of the pack too. And our investments in digital health, in primary care, in mental health, in online claims experiences, those have all been things that have been broadly new to the market in many different ways, and things that do propose some risk. But for us, thinking strategically, thinking about wanting to be offering as much as we can to our customers, and ultimately having the compass of doing something that we think would be great for customers, and we have feedback from our customers they're interested in, has been critical in helping us guide a path forward.
Understood. So if I were to summarize, as you know, it's not this one thing, right? There's not this one thing to say, listen, all you need to do is 500 million in 7 years and someone who's committed to spending and, you know, hiring good people, and then you're off to the races. As usual, you know, life is more complicated. There's continuous trade-offs. And there are actually, with insurance like health insurance, there's actually baked into the business model itself, there's certain trade-offs around benefits, not contributing to everyone equally, etc. So there's even inherent trade-offs of where you invest your premium and investment income to the benefit of the whole. Okay, understood. Why car insurance? I get life insurance, I get health insurance. What's the secret behind car insurance?
So if you look at our parent company in South Africa, we have a whole range of lines that we support beyond car insurance. We have commercial insurance too, for example. For us, it's about, to the points raised earlier, strategically identifying areas in which we can make a significant and material difference to customers, and then delivering those services too. Car insurance is ubiquitous in the UK for people who own cars, and it's a legal requirement. And it's an area where we think the concept of shared value lends itself well.
So especially in the UK, car insurance is immensely competitive, even to the point where the FCA kind of says, no price walking, guys, please don't, for the benefit of the customer, you know, discount new customers as excessively and then try to price walk, you know, kind of try to increase prices and bank on certain stickiness, which is interesting intervention from a regulator because of the prevalence of price comparison side and what that drives in a hyper competitive market. Do you have an edge coming from health or life insurance? So for example, I have this urban legend, I believe, that I think Aviva started tracking certain life insurance data that make you a better driver, and so that you can kind of come from health and life insurance, you could extrapolate some form of conscientiousness, which probably has some form of impact on driving behavior. Is that it? Or are you saying, well, it's just a good entry product? Would just be interesting where you say, this is one of the edges that we have versus someone who doesn't know as much about the health or life of their customers than, I don't know, someone else.
I'm not as close to the historic specifics as to the development of the car insurance business. But what I can say is, as an insurer that focuses on doing more and more for our customers, for us, this is an area that we thought we could add a tremendous amount of value in. And I think for all insurers, us, AXA, Allianz, we're all thinking about what the impact is in terms of virtuous circles, in terms of, again, more value to customers, whether it's health in life, whether it's health in car. whether it's any other type of product too.
And I think there's one kind of simple truth, and I think you can extrapolate from why a lot of kind of new players struggle. And you've mentioned it initially. Trust is earned, and it takes a lot of time to earn trust. And that's almost one of the biggest assets that you have. You have this trust that someone associates with you, and you have these high customer acquisition costs. So if you already have a customer that trusts you in an area that arguably demands more trust, I would argue that if I need to trust my health insurer, my life insurer, more than my car insurer. And so trying to leverage on that trust in and of itself, even though from a, let's say, licensing, partnership, the reusability and the scale and scope are less so. That in and of itself, I think, is warrants enough to kind of try to expand your footprint with your existing customer base. So if we just kind of conscious of time, I'd like to kind of pick your brain, also out of personal curiosity. So from your vantage point, what are the most actionable health advice that you would give to live a healthier, better, however metric you use? And I think it's okay to, I would expect there's some usual culprits we'll see, but also maybe something that is contested, that is kind of unclear, and it's totally fine. Your personal opinion, because I do feel that you have a privileged access to data towards almost everyone else, and would just love to kind of get some health advice out of you.
I think in the context of this particular discussion, the one thing that's really, really clear to us is the importance of people doing what's right for them and what fits into their lives too. People are busier more and more than ever now. So being able to identify ways in which they can balance all of the demands of their life, work, family, care responsibilities, and exercise, and being able to make time to prioritize themselves is critically important too. For some people, that will mean taking a longer walk to the office rather than public transport or driving. For some people, that might mean bringing out the exercise bike after they have their dinner, or they're watching TV, or essentially even doing conference calls. And for some people, that means making sure the gym they select is on their way in the commute home rather than going past their home, to make sure they can embed that trip to stopping in there too. There's always something people can do. And for people, particularly who are struggling to really hit their stride in getting healthier, I'd advise them just to keep trying different things until they find something that works.
So if I would paraphrase that, I think what's important to note is health is, you need to be able to do it every day. If you cannot do it every day, it's not going to work. You're not going to crash diet yourself to 120 of some. So what that means is that every little bit helps also. Change is hard, we've mentioned also personally. So I think what you would say, if you currently have a busy lifestyle, yes, we could lecture you around 8 hours of sleep, no high ultra processed food, depending on where you stand on plant-based, or no smoking, no alcohol, no caffeine, sleep a lot. There's lots of things that in a way, depending on where you are, kind of just makes sense. But if you're in a position of a high risk group, just piles on top. And so I would say just get going. If you just start with something, and I think the good habits also stack the same as bad habits. Is that a fair assessment? That, because otherwise it's just gonna, actually, taking a step back, what I thought, I would like to pick your brain. I actually believe in any of these, I think it might be implicit, you won't be able to change your life if you're stressed. It's very unlikely that you'll change something. We all know what we need to do, right? I don't think there's any secrets, that's probably good for most of us. But if you're stressed and you're adding on top of it, it's just very unlikely going to work for the next 30 years. Is that a fair change of what you've said? Or it's not a real summary. I've added something there.
I think it's important to recognize that life isn't binary, and the relationships between stress and health aren't linear. They're complex and they're bidirectional. And often the things that are stressing you, you don't have agency or full agency to change what's causing them. I think what people can do is they can approach, find, and explore different ways in which they can understand their relationship with stressors, with stress, and how to address them too. I think what's also quite clear is that there's a positive, strong relationship between physical activity and mental health. So a lot of people say cardiovascular exercise, it's quite well established actually, is really, really strong in terms of supporting and protecting mental health.
And just kind of finally, is there a particular health gadget in an app, whatever, where you kind of go, that was something there which currently interests you, or it's something that you've been, has been tried and tested for the last 20 years, that, you would encourage people without advertising, right? People to check out?
I think, again, to my previous point, it's whatever works best for people. I recommend people try a range of different things to see what suits. I particularly like the idea of having objects, wearables, smart scales, posture correction, digital devices, whatever they might be, because actually by having these, they signal a commitment, I think, to doing something, and they help embed habits sometimes easier than a pop-up on your phone, which is competing for your attention with maybe 5, 10, 15 other ones too. So again, it's about exploring, it's about investing time and understanding what works for you, and about embedding that.
I think that was a very good point in the beginning, where you've said, spending time exploring what works for you. It won't be, it's a process. I think once you start, you won't fix nutrition tomorrow. You'll have conflicting priorities. Things are complicated. They're not linear. And I would say, if you think that if you think your health is important, also track how much time you spend thinking about it. Because if you spend zero time thinking about it, it's very unlikely that it's gonna turn out the way you hope, I would say, because good things kind of take time and require attention, usually.
You're absolutely right. And I think, truism from Peter Drucker, what gets measured gets managed, can apply to any aspect of your life, personal as well as professional.
Awesome. Ali, it was really, time flew. For those things, we did skip a long list of other questions, but sometimes brevity is also beautiful. Thank you so much for, your time and sharing your insights. And I'm sure that, if depending on where we launch this, that they'll either already about to listen to you or meet you, on stage at DIAITC, or have that fresh memory in mind. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here, and thank you again.
Hope to see you in Barcelona.
See you then. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.